why do you think you get into trouble all the time? And I had my head down and I was just like, I don't know, man, I'm just a bad kid. And he told me to lift my head up. He said, there's no such thing as a bad kid.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Hockey Culture. This is the place where we try to change the culture of hockey, one interview at a time. And today's special Stanley Cup edition guest, we have Tampa Lightning fan Titus O'Neil, WWE superstar. Welcome, Titus. You know, I'm always interested to talk to people from non-traditional hockey markets to what got them involved and interested in the game of hockey. I know it's speed, it's creativity, it's physical, but what was it like going to your first game, and what actually had you catch that hockey bug that you're like, you know what, I love this sport?
Yeah, so I've never gone to a game, and watching it on TV is much different. Just going to it is a whole nother experience, but it's just a full game experience. And obviously being in WWE, I understand the stuff that has to go on during commercial break, the interaction. So I actually got a whole, education on entertainment as a whole from the Lightning. Just seeing how it's well produced from start to finish. There's never a down moment in the game. It's just consistently moving, and then the athletes, I can't ice skate worth the crap, but it's on a thin blade of ice, moving at that speed, maneuvering, fighting, all this stuff, and they're doing it over. I mean, it's a long season, and the travel and things like that. So I just grew a greater appreciation for them as athletes. But as an organization, like I said, they're very committed on building a brand, a community, and over building a brand for the Lightning. And I think we lead the league in sellouts at Amalie Arena, or amongst the top in sellouts, consecutive sellouts. There's no shortage of tickets, season ticket holders. I just feel like as an organization, there's some places that you can look across sports and see what they do both on the ice and in the community. And I would put the Tampa Bay Lightning against anybody in professional sports, and feel like they would not only hold their own, but pretty much dominate other sports organizations.
Well, your story is so inspirational. You've got 2 degrees, you're student body vice president, you play professional football, and as I mentioned in the open, you're a WWE superstar. But what really has inspired me the most is where you came from. You're a product of a sexual assault. Your mom was raped when she was 11 years old. Talk a little bit about your childhood growing up.
Well, as you said, I'm the product of a sexual assault to my mother, being raped at 11 and having me at 12. With that came a lot of difficulties from a financial standpoint, from an educational standpoint. Being a kid in poverty, I was labeled a kid that would be dead or in jail by the time I was 16, just because I used to get in trouble a lot, used to fight a lot, and got an opportunity to go to a place called the Florida Sheriff's Boys Ranch. And if it wasn't for that place, definitely would not be sitting here at 43 years of age with the accomplishments and the things like you mentioned before, being a University of Florida, proud University of Florida Gator graduate, in the University of Florida Hall of Fame, former student body vice president. But I was the same kid that was labeled a kid that, was too dumb to go to college, would never graduate from high school, would never play sports. I was too uncoordinated, etc. And it was the investment of others that had nothing to gain in return at that time that got me into a position where I'm not only able to, perform as a WWE superstar and celebrate my life as an accomplished author now. With my book, there's No Such Thing as a Bad Kid. And being able to reach thousands and thousands of kids and families because of the investments that others pour into my vision of being able to duplicate the efforts that were instilled in me at a very young age.
Was there one moment where you're talking about, you said you're labeled as a bad kid, and you said you went to the Sheriff's Boys Ranch. Where was the one moment that you changed your life around? Like if there's a child watching this right now and they're having a similar experience that you had growing up, what was that one moment that led to your turnaround? They could probably say, hey, you know what? I could do exactly the same thing and turn my life around also.
Well, the one moment for me was at age 12. I was actually getting ready to get kicked off of the boys ranch because I had just signed a contract that I wouldn't get into any more fights. And 30 minutes later, I got into a fight, which is kind of crazy because now I get paid a good amount of money to fight on TV. But I got called into the office by Patrick Minot, and he had said, he asked me a question, actually made two statements. One was, why do you think you get into trouble all the time? And I had my head down, and I was just like, I don't know, man, I'm just a bad kid. And he told me to lift my head up. He said, there's no such thing as a bad kid. And I say, well, how can you say that? I'm getting ready to be kicked off of the boys' ranch, and I've been told I'll be dead or in jail by the time I was 16 for years, and now it seems like I'm getting ready to head back that way. I don't know what's going to happen when I go back home. And he said, well, I'm going to tick a lot of people off because I'm not going to send you home. I'm going to go against the wishes of what the decision was made. And I'm not going to give you the answer as to why I say there's no such thing, because I truly believe in my heart that you're going to get older and you're going to find out that answer for yourself. In the meantime, I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to believe it. He said, I love you and I believe in you. Now, a lot of people had told me that they loved me up to that point, but then turn around and abuse me, talk crazy to me, cuss me, etc. But nobody had ever told me that they believed that I could do anything. It was the complete opposite. They'd always told me what I would never be able to do. And so that moment didn't instantly turn my behavior around. It did stop me from fighting because I definitely knew that I didn't want to get sent home. But it did teach me that I needed to start believing in myself. And I went from being an underperforming student to being obviously a high grade, high level student. I was never dumb. I was never stupid. I just didn't care. And I think that there are a lot of kids out there that are in a very similar position that I was in at that time, where they didn't feel like people around them really cared about them. The ones that did say they cared about them were there for a short period of time, and then they leave, whether it be a teacher or a counselor, step parent, especially those in impoverished neighborhoods. It's always a lot of turnaround, and a lot of people coming in and out of doors saying, I'm here for you, I love you, and then disappear months later or years later. And so I can see from both perspectives now how important it is to not take a kid that's acting out of order and label them as a bad kid. You have kids that are in bad situations, making bad decisions around bad influences, and they're having bad outcomes. You put those same exact kids, which was me, in a good situation around great people, and they'll have a greater chance to succeed. And so that's what happened for me. And so that's what I try to duplicate through my philanthropy and through my outreach efforts, is to bring people together. I'm not a politically correct person by any stretch of the imagination. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican, gay, lesbian, black, white, or whatever. People from all walks of life helped me get into this position that I'm in today. And I've never been a divisive person. I've always been very truthful and forthright with who I am, what I represent, but also the realities of what I have to deal with as a black man in America, and as a black parent, as a black co-worker, as a black person in a business in which hasn't always portrayed blacks or browns in a very positive light. It's usually been very stereotypical in entertainment as a whole. I just want to continue to help those shape the lives of many in whatever way I possibly can. And I think that a large part of that is having people with large platforms kind of joining in, not only bring awareness, but to raise funds and to actually do the work. And so when I was invited to speak at the All-Star game for the NHL, when it was here in Tampa, to discuss my story and to also, kind of introduce the Declaration of Principles that they put out, I said even that day, all right, now, Gary Bettman and everybody here, now, if y'all gonna put this on paper, don't have me up here looking crazy, because if it's in writing, that means it's going to be a concerted effort to try to make sure that hockey is accessible in communities that are underserved and predominantly in the black and brown communities. And I'm very, happy to see that we have not only a great, obviously a team that's in the finals right now in the Tampa Bay Lightning, but a great community partner that's committed to doing the right thing on a consistent basis for all people. There's never a time that I've ever seen any sports franchise up close and personal make the investments on a consistent basis that I've seen the Tampa Bay Lightning, do for years. Jeff Bennick, Steve Griggs, Mr. Wickett, Bill Wickett, and obviously Coach Cooper are being the leaders of that and kind of setting a culture that welcomes everybody. And that's, I never played hockey a day of my life. I don't share the same stories that you can share as from a player's perspective, but as a black man in America and someone that understands that sport is very expensive, much like baseball and lacrosse, for those that are in underserved communities to be a part of, and to see people and see an organization like the NHL take a concerted effort at trying to make this game accessible, not just from a playing perspective, but also from hiring perspective, and I think that across the board, especially with what's going on in the country right now, diversity and inclusion is definitely on the forefront of everyone's conversation. But what does that look like? For me, I was put in a very non-diverse situation at the boys' ranch. I was one of 3 black kids on campus, and I had to call a white woman and a white man mom and pop. And from a person that never met their biological dad a day in my life, I had to, swallow my pride in a lot of cases and like really try to have a conversation with a person that's from opposite race and give them my perspective. And sometimes they understood and sometimes they could not. But, I would tell any kid or any person in general, like, especially now, like, let your voice be heard in whatever way that is. Some people are very good at verbalizing things on social media. Some people are very good at verbalizing things as an activist. And some people are advocates. And then there are some people that rather be behind the scenes and just trying to help push legislature and to push policies that open up levels of diversity and inclusion across all fronts.
Well, you're talking about putting in work, and you've certainly been putting in that work at Sly Middle Magnet School. You've had a big impact on that community, putting in that work and putting your money where your mouth is. You've invested a lot of money into that community. Talk a little bit about that and why it's important to give back to that local community.
Well, I look at all the growth that's happened in the city of Tampa, and over the last 5 years, you can see gentrification happening right before your eyes in various places that were destitute in some cases. And I feel like that whole East Tampa area has so much potential. And where do you start with the rebuilding process of trying to give those people that live in that community a chance to stay in that community? I felt like it was in the form of education. And you start with the kids and the children, and hopefully you can do some things with the adults. So we're building out a prosperity center over there that'll help with a culinary program that will place people in more than higher than minimum wage paying jobs. We're looking at affordable housing in that area, looking at continuing the growth pattern for this for the not only elementary and middle school there, but for all schools surrounding that area. We're partnered with Feeding Tampa Bay and Metropolitan Ministries in developing a new concept, which we'll be able to have a production kitchen there on the campus of the school, where we'll be able to feed 500 to 1,000 families a week with take-home meals, obviously because food insecurity is a big issue here, as it is across the country. But being able to really just have a place, a hub, where people can grow and learn and have pride in. Like I say, I feel like gentrification is going to come that way, but that doesn't mean the whole community has to be different. There should be some type of culture set, especially for those Black and brown families that have lived there for years, being pushed out, whether it be their houses being bought or the landlord issues or whatever it may be, and then, forced to go on the completely opposite end of the city or the county sometimes. Puts these families at a very big disadvantage when they're already not making ends meet. Now you take in consideration gas, adequate transportation to get to and from the school district. What, if they're moving from, a B or C school and going into an F school situation, like how is that going to impact their child, their children? There's so many elements that can happen with change, but the biggest thing that we've seen and I've consistently seen is that there are so many partners in this community that care and they want to see the work being done, and that's all I'm really concerned about. Like I said, I don't care if that work's being done by Democrats, Republicans. I think everybody in their right mind should know that healthcare should be accessible to everyone. That a good education, a quality education with schools with resources to be able to do their job. Teachers are the most undervalued asset in the world, in my opinion. And they're underpaid for the tasks that they're responsible for, and then they're undersourced too. So being able to have companies and corporations and private equity business partners that want to give back, but just want they want to say, I want to do that. And they can look right at it, they see right exactly where their money is going, and it makes them feel, I think, more in tune with what's going on rather than just writing a blanket check and saying, all right, guys, go on your way.
Well, Tampa Lightning is one of those companies or organizations that are massive in that community in terms of giving back. You're the recipient in 2017 of the Tampa Lightning Community Hero Award, and I think that it's because they've really recognized the work that you've been putting in the community, but you've mentioned about how important the partnership has been. Speak a little bit about that. I mean, you're more than just a fan of Tampa Lightning. You guys work together in a lot of these initiatives in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, well, so this year we partnered up with the Tampa Bay Lightning to produce our first ever virtual back-to-school bash. We traditionally have done it over the last couple of years at Raymond James Stadium, and it draws 25,000 to 30,000 people. We give out backpacks, school supplies, physicals, eyeglasses, etc. With our partners with the Buccaneers as well, and the Rays and many others. But the Lightning, they, obviously not being able to play at home and have an Amalie Arena available, we were able to pull this off with the help of Microsoft and the Tampa Bay Lightning and so many other partners, just coming to the table and producing an event similar to what looked like the ESPYs. We had a cooking experience, we had exercise experience, we had different rooms where John Cena was reading his book, Elbow Grease, and different competitions. So it gave, my relationship with the Lightning, obviously, I try to go to the games as much as possible when I'm at home, but it's just my love for them is really about, there are some organizations that are consistent with building a brand. I truly believe in my heart the Lightning are about building this community, and their commitment over the last, 8-9 years in regards to how much money, $50,000 every home game to a local community hero or nonprofit organization to help them continue doing the work amongst all the other things they've done with the Boys and Girls Clubs, building hockey rinks in destitute areas in partnership with the Boys and Girls Club. We fed 5,000 frontline workers, when the COVID hit, pandemic first hit. They're getting ready to also make Amalie Arena a polling station, for the upcoming elections, for early voting, and et cetera. So it's a lot of things that they have been able to do, and I've been fortunate enough to be a part of those things.
Yeah, it's amazing the stuff they're doing there. A lot of hockey teams are, jumping in, making their arenas polling stations. Professional athletes at every single level have a great appreciation for other athletes in different sports. Is there any similarities at all that you see from watching hockey that could be similar to wrestling? Besides the fighting, of course.
Yeah, besides the fighting, it's just you're showmen too. The passion that the fans have in the NHL. It's much like the WWE. It's a huge following. It's a bigger following in some cases than even football and baseball, because if you go to Canada, they care less about American football. And soccer, and things like that. And even in Europe, there's a great appreciation for the game of hockey, along with soccer. Those are the two king sports. Again, basketball and football, are, to me, traditionally American sports. But as a whole, the excitement, you can't even duplicate it. It's like me coming out to my entrance music and at a WrestleMania event every time I go to there. It's just loud. It's crazy that everybody kind of has their own way of starting, to interact with the action and stuff like that. And it's a cool, ongoing experience that I've been able to fortunately take a lot of people to their first hockey game, and specifically kids and black and brown kids, and for them to go and see it in person and then actually be able to meet some of the players like Steve Stamkos or even some of the legends like Andrew Chuck, and being able to have them come down and see Benny LeCavalier, and I mean the list goes on, Marty St. Louis. Those guys made homes here, and they made great efforts in being involved in the fabric of the community. And so it gives you a whole different respect for them as athletes.
Do you have a favorite player on the Lightning you like to watch?
I like for him to stay healthier, but Steve Stamkos, you know, he's a guy that, like, you know, I obviously when they drafted him, he's extremely young, the up-and-coming star, but I've just grown so much love and appreciation for him as a person and as a player. He's grown a lot, and, you know, got married here. He's, you know, donated several times to my foundation to help us with our efforts, and so he's my favorite for multiple reasons outside of just being able to what he does on the ice. And obviously, Coach Cooper, you know, his story. Me and him met actually on a plane, and it was like right when he was getting hired to come here, and we just been friends since. You know, exchange texts sometimes, and I try to do my best to see him and his wife, who was on another flight with me like 2 or 3 years after. I had talked to her in other places, but she was flying to Chicago. I was flying to Chicago. We ended up sitting in first class together and talking and sending a picture to John, and kind of letting him know that she was in good hands, you know, on the way. And so, yeah, I love the organization as a whole. Like I said, from top to bottom, you got guys like Steve Briggs and Bill Wickett, who have been, you know, first class from day one. And obviously Jeff Vinnick with his investments, not just in the community, but in the team, and making sure we have a quality product year in and year out, to be able to compete for a Stanley Cup, which we, you know, obviously in the last 4 or 5 years, been right in the thick of things. Last year, I absolutely hated that went down, but you know, we got a chance this year to be very special. We got to go and kick Dallas's ass. And bring that cup back bring the Stanley Cup back to Tampa.
Titus, thank you again for joining us, and thank you for all the work you're doing in the Tampa Bay community. If you want to donate to the Bullard Family Foundation, please go to bullardfamilyfoundation.org. Anything you could give be greatly appreciated. Also, you can find the book, There's No Such Thing as a Bad Kid. It's out online, so please take a read to dive deeper into Titus' story. Once again, Titus, thank you for joining us on Hockey Culture. We'll be checking on and see how the Tampa Bay Lightning are doing the Stanley Cup Final.
Thank you so much for having me, and as always, go Bolts, and we will see you guys in the very near future, hopefully as Stanley Cup champions.